Hey guys, it's Tyken here. I'm back with another video for you, so let's dive right in. Oh, and don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment. Let me know which manhwa you want to see next. Let's go!
The story began in a PC Bang, a Korean internet cafe. Inside, a player bragged about taking first place in the rankings as soon as he woke up. His friend was shocked, asking if he had achieved that by himself. Nearby, our protagonist was just eating a sausage skewer, listening to the conversation. He turned to the two of them with a knowing smirk. The player's friend was surprised by the stranger's intrusion, but the hooded young man kept talking, completely confident. The conversation was about the ranking of the game's most difficult dungeons. The friend commented that the protagonist spoke as if being number one was the easiest thing in the world. At that moment, the young man's face turned serious. He remembered that he only found true fun in the most extreme challenges. His eyes shone with the intensity of a professional. The day of gaming finally came to an end. The friend said goodbye, joking that he should pay the bill with his fat wallet. But the protagonist just turned around and walked away alone down the street. The protagonist walked through the city, hooded and lost in his thoughts. He observed the world around him, a place very different from games, poles, wires, things he didn't even care about before. The young man continued on his way, hands in his pockets, looking pretty down. Out of nowhere, a truck appeared at high speed. The vehicle was heading straight for him. At the last second, the guy noticed the approaching danger. He stood still, right in front of the truck. The vehicle flew past him and braked hard, screeching its tires. The protagonist looked back, a little scared by what almost happened. The driver stuck his head out, furious, and shouted if the young man was trying to kill himself, but the guy just pointed to the side with a "Are you crazy?" look on his face. The pedestrian signal was green. He had the right of way. Without saying anything, the protagonist simply kept walking, leaving the driver speechless. A hooded young man walked through the city, lost in his thoughts. He looked at a construction site and imagined how different everything would be if he could create the world he desired. But suddenly, a crane cable snapped with a crack. A giant steel beam began to fall, and people screamed in panic. The protagonist saw that the beam was going to fall right on top of a little girl. His eyes widened in pure terror. The child stood still, not understanding the danger coming from above. In the blink of an eye, the young man acted. He pushed the girl away with all his strength. She fell to the ground, scared but safe. But he wasn't so lucky. The beam crushed him in her place. He sacrificed himself for the child. Lying in a pool of blood, the young man struggled to breathe. His consciousness slowly faded. This was the end. The protagonist woke up in a dark void. He felt like he was in a black hole and wondered if he was dead. Suddenly, a powerful voice called him mortal. A giant entity appeared, saying it was time to face reality. The young man was shocked and yelled, recognizing that figure. The entity explained that death was just a path to reincarnation. The protagonist didn't understand anything, completely lost with that revelation. Then, the creature said it would give him a chance to remember everything. But the young man shouted back, asking what the hell it was talking about. The scene changed to a memory. A white-haired demon smiled arrogantly. Another demon's gaze filled with pure dread. Out of nowhere, he started vomiting purple blood, feeling terrible pain. The demon grabbed his own throat, shouting that it felt like he was burning from the inside. A demon girl looked at the scene, not believing what she was seeing. Even the white-haired demon seemed surprised by the situation. While suffering, the demon wondered why he had to go through this, as a blue aura consumed him. The great hall doors burst open. A guard announced that the Demon King Hel Khaldun had returned from his hero hunt. Surprised, his children wondered why their father had returned earlier than planned. Suddenly, one of the youths began to cough up blood, clutching his own neck. a purple and powerful aura began to emanate from someone. It was the Demon King's hand, and there he was, Hel Khaldun, the Demon King, staring at everyone with a deadly look. His expression was cold and relentless. One of the girls screamed for her father, seeing what was happening to her brother. But the king didn't care. He grabbed his own daughters by the neck. The first girl struggled, unable to breathe. The other could barely withstand the pressure either. The young man watched everything, helpless and terrified. He stared at his father, who showed not a shred of remorse. The king said that the sound of a great demon being slaughtered echoed in his castle. That's when the young man understood everything. With absurd power, the purple-haired demon promised an honorable death. He then walked among the bodies of the enemies, victorious. But his last victim was still standing, a young demon who spat blood, shocked. The blow was accurate. The boy couldn't take it and fell backward. As he died, he couldn't believe it. How could he be attacked like this, being the son of that bastard? With a hole in his chest, the young man cursed his fate. His father stared at him with complete coldness, while his son died in pure despair. It made him remember his childhood, when he was just a scared and hurt child. Back then, his mother told him a story about his father. She said he killed 12 of his own siblings to become the great demon lord. The woman advised him, saying that if someone tried to kill him, he should fight back like a true demon would. The little boy cried, afraid that someone would actually kill him, but his mother just smiled sinisterly and asked if he understood the lesson. With tears streaming down, the little demon finally understood how cruel his world was. In a memory, Kella's mother told him about his father. The man killed 12 brothers to become the great demon lord, and behind her back, she held a dagger. Suddenly, the woman stabbed him, all this with a calm smile on her face. Young Kella could only cry, feeling the pain and betrayal. He woke up screaming. It had just been a nightmare. The protagonist was panting, sweating cold. That childhood trauma still haunted him. That's when he looked at his own hands. They had turned into sharp claws. Confused, Kella showed his hands to the maid, but she just warned him that it was time for the family meal. That maid seemed much more intimidating than a regular employee. Afterward, she helped him choose an outfit for the party. Kella tried to scare her, joking that she also needed an outfit. Kella appeared out of nowhere, saying that the task of the day was to clean the blanket. But in reality, she just wanted an excuse to take a nap. Even worse, she didn't even bother to go. She sent a doll instead. Later, the protagonist was getting ready, thinking about that brat Kella. But his gaze was different. There was a new determination there. He clenched his fist, preparing for what was to come. The young man thought about how his life had been a lie all this time. Sweat ran down his face. The pressure was gigantic. He and Kella entered the dining hall, where the great lord was waiting. The leader's gaze was heavy and extremely intimidating. The protagonist felt the weight of that imposing presence right away. He sat down at the table, formally apologizing for the delay. Out of nowhere, a blade pierced the chair and impaled him from behind. The pain was unbearable. He couldn't hold back the scream. One of the women at the table smiled, sarcastically saying that he should eat more. The young man gnashed his teeth, clearly furious about the situation, but he tried to hide it, thanking them for the food he had just received. With great effort, he brought a spoonful to his mouth. The instant he tasted it, he realized, this wasn't food, it was poison. The white-haired woman smiled, saying the soup was made especially for him. The protagonist looked at her, feeling the poison begin to take effect. He remembered that entire family, all treating him with the same contempt. But this time, he wasn't just going to accept his fate. He decided he wouldn't be anyone's victim anymore. At that moment, the memories of his past life came flooding back. A life where he was beaten every day, unable to fight back, until one day, he was beaten and thrown from the top of a building. He died alone and humiliated, but now, with the memories of that hell, he wouldn't be weak anymore. With a sinister smile, he held the plate and called for Tadera. The fight started with food flying everywhere. One of the girls got the worst of it, her face covered in filth. This scene brought back a dark memory for Kella, the memory of a blood-stained dagger. He remembered shouting that it was a gift from Tadera as he plunged the blade into his target. From afar, the Great Lord watched everything with a less than pleased expression. A maid tried to warn Kella that he was late for class, but the young man, full of anger, told her to stop giving orders. The girl didn't understand anything. She wondered why on earth he was acting that way. Kella was dwelling on all that humiliation. He clenched his fist tightly, trying to control himself. But instead of suppressing it, he decided to use that power. He remembered a voice telling him to use that strength properly. A confident smile appeared on his face. Arriving in class, the teacher was already waiting for them with a smile. Right away, one of the students came to provoke Kella. The guy continued with a nasty smile on his face, but Kella was already losing patience. The protagonist stared at the provoker with pure determination. The teacher then announced that the two would do the second match. A red-haired demon prepared his magic and asked with a smile if his opponent was ready. The audience was already making fun. They said that young Master Kella was going to get beaten up again and asked the fighter to take it easy so he wouldn't cry. But Kella just listened to everything in silence with a serious expression. His opponent, Rude, grinned sickly, eager to start the beating. Kella then lowered his gaze. An old memory came to his mind. He remembered his past life when he was just a weak and hurt boy, always surrounded by bullies, a life of loneliness and pain where getting beaten was routine. But he thought all that was in the past. At the same instant, an insane blue aura exploded from his body. Rude panicked. He screamed, not understanding what that power was. Kella stood still, enveloped in flames of energy. The crowd couldn't believe what they were seeing. The pressure was so strong that Rude was completely paralyzed. He couldn't move. With a cold look, Kella advanced to attack and delivered a single punch. The blow was so brutal that it buried Rude in the ground, creating a crater. The people who were mocking him were dumbfounded, understanding absolutely nothing. The teacher panicked, wondering if Rude had died from the blow. On the ground, Rude spat blood, completely finished. Kella stood over him with a sinister blue aura emanating from his body. The opponent's face was unrecognizable. With a deadly look, Kella warned that if he got up again, he would die. The audience was in shock, not understanding how this had happened. Kella then turned to the teacher, calling for his attention. One of the students watched everything, completely paralyzed. From afar, she saw Kella on the building's balcony, alone. The girl thought she could never forgive him for that brutality. Meanwhile, in a recovery bath, two demons were talking. The one with long hair seemed to be teasing the other, and she exploded in anger, yelling at him, but the boy's expression changed, seeming to remember something sad. The scene cut to Kella, who was having a fit of rage. Rude's crushing defeat shocked everyone, especially a trio of powerful demons watching from afar. One of the demons, with white hair, seemed to mock the situation. But the man next to her just smiled, as if he already expected something like that. His calmness completely shocked the woman. She didn't understand anything. The scene changed. The woman was now in a bath, shouting Kella's name full of rage. The white-haired man was with her, completely calm in the face of her fury. She turned to him, annoyed, and asked what he meant by that smile. He remained silent for a moment. The demon waited for an answer, staring at him. The man then gave a wry smile. He seemed to have a very well thought out plan in mind. After hearing his proposal, the woman agreed, saying it wasn't a bad idea. The two smiled. A plan against Kella was being formed at that very moment. Back in the arena, the other demon of the trio watched everything with a serious look. Meanwhile, Kella could only smile, feeling the insane power he had just awakened. Back at the academy, an instructor began an important class. Kella listened attentively, but the news caught him by surprise. The teacher began to talk about the history and enemies of the kingdom. He showed the symbol of an alliance of human guilds. The instructor revealed that these guilds were gathering near the demonic kingdom. Kella processed the information, his face growing more serious. The professor directly blamed these guild bastards for the tension. The protagonist's anger began to rise. The speech was for the entire class of young demons. He reminded them of the strength and history of their people. Kella said nothing, but his mind was racing. Later, the young man was on top of a tower, deep in thought. He looked at the horizon with a look full of determination. Memories of powerful warriors came to his mind. A girl approached, looking worried about him. Kella revealed that the castle had a single weakness, leaving the girl not understanding anything. The two then looked up, analyzing the imposing structure in front of them. The weakness, in fact, was Kella himself. He was the main target, the central point of everything. The young demon stood there, completely confident in his plan. Behind that smile, his true form was hidden, an overwhelming power. He then warned that it was time to prepare for what was to come. Suddenly, a voice echoed in his mind, saying that Kella could not escape his eyes. Kella realized right away, this wasn't reality. He needed to confirm something. Desperate, the protagonist shouted for them to go to the castle basement immediately. There was no time to lose. Urgency took over him. The memory took him back to his past life as the Great Lord. At that time, he had declared that it was time to create his own map. A decision that would change everything was about to be made, and that was exactly what Kella needed to confirm in his mind. Upon remembering, the young man's face twisted in pure panic. Reality was worse than he imagined. Kella's subordinate led him to his new office, but the place was basically a dusty storage room. Kella exploded, shouting that this wasn't an office for a demon king. The girl was terrified, already starting to cry. He slammed his hand on the table, trying to control himself, but the anger was still visible. Only in the midst of the fear, the girl realized something, a small epiphany. Actually, she thought Kella was super cool that way, and even wondered if she should really work for him. But the dream ended when Kella told her to stop staring and get some coffee. She ran out of the room. Alone, Kella's tough guy pose disappeared. The young man opened a map on the table. That castle had no hopes or dreams, but he was going to change that. Meanwhile, the girl was running desperately to get coffee, until she stopped out of nowhere, completely confused. A heavy step sounded behind her. It was a giant and intimidating demon. He asked what she was doing there without Kella. The Great Lord looked down with a serious expression. Next to him, a maid trembled from head to toe, terrified. The pressure in the air was so intense that she could barely breathe. The scene then changed to a wooden door, closed. Inside, a young Kella was hunched over a map, finding it all very amusing. He remembered the legends and great heroes of the past. The young man thought to himself that what he loved most in the world was making maps. Suddenly, a loud noise came from the door. The door exploded into pieces, throwing Kella backward. In the entrance, the Great Lord appeared, completely furious, but Kella showed no fear, only anger. In an instant, the Lord advanced and pierced the boy's chest with his hand. He held Kella as the young man cried out in pain, and Kella just spat blood, dying in his arms. A brutal blow pierced the young demon's body. Despair took over. He was sure he was going to die. Even on the verge of death, he desperately showed a map. The demon leader lifted him by the collar, asking what it was. Ignoring the pain, the young man focused entirely on the plan. He began to explain his daring strategy, changing the very geography of the battlefield, following what he drew. The pain was immense, but the will to win was even greater. In that look, there was no more fear, only the certainty of victory. Without warning, the leader threw him violently to the ground. The young man fell on the map, his blood staining the plan. Even wounded and humiliated, he did not lower his head. The leader then analyzed the map, considering the strategy. For the first time, the greater demon's gaze changed. He was impressed, and with his last strength, he reminded everyone who he was, the son of the great demon king. Wounded and spitting blood, the young demon fell to his knees. His bloody hand pressed a map to the ground. The demon king stared at him with a cold look. But the young man, even broken, did not lower his head. One of the maids panicked. She wondered if he wanted to die for talking to the king like that. The demon king began to speak, and his words hit the young man hard, who was shocked. With a bloody finger, the king gave his final order. The young man reached out in a last act of desperation. His whole plan was on that map. But the demon king seemed to be amused by the situation. He simply turned his back, ignoring the boy's plea. That contempt ignited a flame of fury in the young man. The king turned around, surprised by the change in attitude. With a defiant smile, he faced the king head-on. He then raised the map, showing his grand plan for conquest. For the first time, the Demon King seemed to take the boy seriously. With a cold and focused look, Kella was ready for what was to come. His presence was so strong that a noble simply couldn't take it. But the great lord walked right past. He had a goal, and nothing would get him off track. Kella continued to oversee the preparations. In his territory, construction advanced rapidly. Humans and demons worked side by side. Far away, a knight complained that his enemies were using illusion magic. Nearby, a red-haired warrior listened to her partner with a serious expression. But soon, she flashed a wild grin. The woman was crazy about a good fight. Meanwhile, in the Great Lord's castle, Kella sat on his throne, thinking that everything was going as planned. It was quite different from creating a map in the game. He admitted to himself that the plan wasn't perfect, but he had the power to change whatever was needed. The protagonist was determined. The next day was the big day to settle the score, and on the day of the battle there was a total rush. Mages moved huge structures, shouting that time was running out. His soldiers broke rocks urgently. The order was clear: move faster. From a window, a cat-eared man watched everything, saying that the plan was progressing perfectly. He kept a confident smile on his face. Outside, the stage for his plan was set. The young man was manipulating a conflict between two great forces. He thought anxiously that the big day would be tomorrow. And then, the next day arrived. A crowd of soldiers, the Talcan squad, gathered for war. Their leader introduced himself to a commander, thanking them for coming and confirming that the squad was ready. The white-haired commander agreed, excited to go after the demon. The leader then shouted, raising the morale of his troops. Suddenly, a magic circle began to form on the ground. A teleportation portal opened right in front of them. But something was wrong. The squad leader panicked. He screamed in pure terror. The portal exploded in a huge blast of energy, engulfing the entire army. On the battlefield, the knights raised their shields in desperation. A young mage channeled his light, trying to contain what was coming towards them, but a blast of blue energy swept everything away. And from the flames, a horned silhouette began to form. A demon of overwhelming power had just arrived on the battlefield. Far away, in the demon realm, a commander pointed to a map. He reported the situation with a tense look. The demon lord, sitting on his throne, listened indifferently, thinking about teleporting to the enemy base. Suddenly, one of his generals panicked, and the other looked at her with disdain, not understanding why. Until his gaze also changed. The two generals were completely shocked by the news they received. Their reaction was enough for the demon lord to understand. His calm vanished. He stood up, promising that he would kill every single one of them. An aura of pure fury exploded from his body. The human commander realized they had fallen into a trap. With pure hatred, the knight gritted his teeth. He didn't hesitate and ordered a full-force attack. But on the other side, a mysterious warrior stared at them coldly. Suddenly, an explosion of blue power devastated the battlefield. At the top of a building, the enemy leader watched everything. The young demon seemed surprised by the situation in the forest. With his fangs bared, he shouted an order. The leader extended his hand, commanding his army to advance, and down below, the horde of monsters answered the call, ready for war. Despair took over the humans. A soldier shouted that the demon castle forces were attacking. The battle turned into complete chaos, with monsters attacking everywhere. The soldiers realized it was an ambush and were massacred. Seeing the carnage, the young demon leader clenched his fist. He seemed to be thinking about everything that was at stake at that moment. A young man with demon features flashed a confident and dangerous smile. His group began to walk away, but one of the girls said that he wouldn't have done that if the young man hadn't crossed the line. Suddenly, the boy's expression changed to pure shock. A hooded man emerged from the shadows, ordering him to die as there was no place for him there. And then, a beam of green energy pierced the young man's chest. The blow was brutal and precise. He screamed in pain, feeling his life drain away. The mysterious attacker simply smiled, satisfied with the result. But the white-haired girl also went on the attack. With a single blow, she tore his head off. The two assassins laughed maniacally, enjoying the scene. The young man's head fell, his face frozen in disbelief. His wide eyes couldn't understand what had happened. That was his last and shocking moment of life. Out of nowhere, Kella's body was thrown backward, headless. His head fell towards the ground. In his last moments, he thought of his mother's weapon, which was forbidden. The body and head crashed against the pavement. Kella took his last breath, completely in shock. Up above, two demons celebrated, saying they had finally cut off Kella's head, but the celebration was interrupted by a surprise attack. The demon, Seldera, stabbed her partner in the back, yelling that she found his weak spot. She plunged the dagger in with a sadistic smile on her face. The demon looked down, shocked by the betrayal. Caldera didn't seem to care about the rules at all. Her partner screamed in anger and pain. The traitor just admired the bloody dagger. She then licked the blood from the blade, completely insane. Fury took over the betrayed demon. He charged at Seldera with everything he had, seeking revenge. With a war cry, the white-haired girl charged at her opponent. The blades clashed in an instant, releasing a wave of energy, but the fight ended too quickly. The gray-haired boy was already on the ground, defeated. He couldn't believe what had happened, completely humiliated. His consciousness began to fade slowly. Elsewhere, the violence was even worse. An enemy was caught and thrown to the ground with full force. Without any mercy, the aggressor grabbed his head and simply ripped it off, letting the body fall lifelessly. Meanwhile, the defeated boy was being supported by someone. He could barely groan in pain. The white-haired girl also showed her wild side, completely out of it. Far away, a war was happening. A voice gave the order, "Run to the secret passage." The plan was to bypass the battlefield and attack the enemy from behind. But they fell into a trap. The enemy shouted that they already knew all their tactics. The heaven soldiers panicked. The ambush had failed completely. But for the army of darkness, it didn't matter. The order was to fight for honor, no matter what happened. The battle exploded. There was no turning back. A red dragon prepared a devastating fire attack, but a warrior charged forward with everything without fear of death. He jumped on the beast, trying to subdue it in the middle of the fight, but the dragon reacted quickly and trapped him with its tail. The creature crushed him against the ground with brutal force. One of his comrades saw the scene and ran, screaming in despair. On the other side, the commanders ordered an all-out attack. A horde of monsters advanced with maximum force, but in the middle of the dust, a sinister silhouette began to form. The red-cloaked warrior stopped, sensing that terrifying energy. Another soldier panicked, unable to believe what he was seeing. The blue aura began to materialize, taking shape. Sharp claws emerged from the pure energy, and then he revealed himself, a demonic form, overflowing with power. A dark and overwhelming energy took over the battlefield. The humans panicked. They said the transformation was identical to the books, the Demon King's final form. The red-haired warrior was completely terrified. Fear spread, making all the soldiers tremble to their core. She tried to shout an order, but it was already too late. Their leader could only curse, frustrated with the situation. The pressure was so intense that his body was shaking uncontrollably, even against his will. Meanwhile, Kella was thinking. He knew his plan had a single weak point. The strategy allowed them to bring the army straight to the center of the enemy base. But there was a crucial disadvantage to it. Kella reflected that this was the only problem with his tactic, except he didn't mention it to anyone, to maintain morale as the Demon King. However, at this moment, none of that mattered anymore. With a confident smile, he decided that now the focus was elsewhere. He decided that he needed to kill them all, right there. In the middle of the battle, a warrior was screaming, completely desperate. The man ran with everything he had, putting his life at risk. But on the other side, an absurd power was watching everything. And then, energy attacks rained down on the city. The force of the impact opened a giant hole in a building. Inside, a boy fell to the ground, supported by a girl. He was seriously injured, bleeding from his mouth and neck. The girl looked at him, completely panicked. But suddenly, a voice shouted that it was disgusting and asked when he was going to get used to it. It turns out the boy's arm had been torn off, and the girl was holding it with disgust. He groaned in pain as she tried to put the limb back in place. With a disgusted look, she asked if the process was over yet. The young man looked at his arm, now healed, as if nothing had happened. But instead of thanking her, he started yelling at her about his head. A young demon, shirtless, asked Kella to do the same with his head. He shouted, demanding that she cut it off very carefully. Sometime later, the same guy appeared all dressed up, adjusting his tie. With a serious look, he gave her a direct warning. Kella was shocked by what she heard. She tried to hide her nervousness with a forced smile. A colleague then whispered that the Demon King was busy fighting against the heavens. The girl looked completely desperate about the situation, but Kella flashed a confident smile, terrifying the other girl. Suddenly, someone gritted their teeth, feeling immense pain. It was the young man from before, now fallen and bloody. Kella held him, calling him an idiot, her face panicked, but he wasn't finished. The young man opened his eyes, full of determination. Kella's reaction was pure terror. The demon stood up, glowing. He thought he was going to die, but his recovery speed was absurd. Even all wounded, Kella smiled. He thought it didn't matter because he survived. Everything was still going according to his plan. His servant, Kella, began to cry desperately. Seeing her like that, the master said that their contract no longer existed. He freed her, telling her to live the life she wanted. The girl couldn't take it and hugged him tightly, completely panicked. Kella was totally embarrassed and moved away from her. He then materialized a new contract seal in his hand, but the proposal was different. He asked her to be his friend, no longer his servant. The young woman was in shock, not believing what she heard. Kella, dying of shame, looked away, but soon after he gave her a confident smile. The girl was paralyzed, processing everything. Kella then turned and began to walk away. At that moment, she remembered when they were children. He had made the same promise. Touched by the memory, Kella started crying again, but this time out of happiness. In a distant memory, a girl begged Master Kella to take her with him. Back in the present, a warrior named Khaldun stood firm on the battlefield. His opponent was terribly wounded, with an arm torn off. But even in that state, the demonic being remained standing, shocking Khaldun. The warrior realized that it was not a common monster, it was the great demon himself. Khaldun cursed softly, frustrated that he couldn't do anything. The demon thought it didn't matter who showed up. No human could stop this disaster. He then looked down, silently. The ground was covered with the bodies of human soldiers. His eyes watched the carnage, but he also remembered that his own soldiers had fallen. Blood dripped from his mouth. The pain of the lost arm was visible. The great demon then closed his eyes, concentrating. He decided no, this fight was his from the beginning. A sinister voice declared that it would all end now, as a purple energy consumed the world. Far away, Kella finally spotted an exit, a light of hope. The young man thought that, upon arriving there, he would finally be free from everything. But out of nowhere, his servant pushed him, shouting his name. Kella didn't understand anything. A blue energy attack came flying in their direction. The girl reacted instantly, creating a barrier of dark magic to defend herself. The two of them had wide eyes, in pure shock and despair. Hooded figures emerged from the shadows, emanating a blue aura. It wasn't just one. A whole group was there to stop them. Kella was furious, his hope turning into anger. He realized that they knew about the escape the whole time. It was a trap. The leader of the hooded figures gave the order to attack with everything. Kella's servant threw herself in front, defending against the attack with her barrier. Kella shouted desperately, asking if she was going to try to hold that back alone, but she replied firmly that she was Master Kella's servant, and she would protect him at any cost. The young man was furious. Rin could only use a very simple defense magic, but then he understood everything. Rin was planning to sacrifice herself so that he could survive. The girl released an absurd amount of energy, yelling at him to go now, but he wasn't going to let her. The young man grabbed her arm, interrupting the spell. He shouted, asking what kind of nonsense this was, thinking she was so strong. Rin didn't understand anything. He could barely stand with his whole body wounded, but even so, the protagonist decided to fight alone. Rin couldn't believe what she was seeing. One of the enemy mages appeared. He said that now there was no way for them to escape. The mage then prepared a massive energy attack, but the young man didn't back down an inch. He released his own power, hitting back the attack with everything. The girl looked at him, completely shocked by that power. The enemy was paralyzed. He wasn't expecting this. Without wasting time, the protagonist advanced on the mage. Even wounded, Kella stood over Rude's body, with his blue aura still burning strong. He had grabbed the enemy's face mercilessly. Rude even tried to ask him to stop, but it was no use. With a single devastating blow, Kella buried him in the ground. The opponent was now completely defeated, groaning in pain among the rubble. The gray-haired girl couldn't believe what she was seeing. She thought it was impossible for him to have been defeated. But victory had barely arrived, and new enemies appeared. Kella was still recovering when the girl noticed the new threat approaching. The two mages said that he gave them no choice and prepared a combined attack. Their gazes were of pure determination to end this. The girl shouted desperately, telling Kella to retreat immediately, but he wasn't going to run. The young demon faced the attack head-on, ready to retaliate. But at the last second, A blur passed in front of him. The girl threw herself in front of the attack. She took the hit to protect him. The mages were breathless. They said the attack worked perfectly, not noticing they hit the wrong person. Their weapons still glowed, confirming the accurate hit. One of the hooded men thanked his partner for all the work they had done. He then turned to the girl, saying she would be fun to play with. The young woman was completely terrified by the sudden threat. The aggressor put a knife to her and promised he would play with her soon. But out of nowhere, Kella appeared, furious at the sight. The protagonist faced the man from the Sacred Order, ready for the confrontation. At that moment, Kella remembered his goal. He thought he was almost there, and now everything was interrupted. Suddenly, the young man felt a presence. Something was coming. A pain hit him. He wondered if everything was ruined. But that feeling? Kella felt like he knew that presence from somewhere. In his mind, the image of a demon lord appeared. The entity wanted to know how Kella got there. The protagonist panicked. The pressure was overwhelming. The demonic figure just watched him with a serious and intimidating look. Kella couldn't take it. The feeling that everything was ruined completely overwhelmed him. Inside Kella's mind, the former Demon King began to speak. Kella was shocked, not understanding anything he was saying. The king recalled that demons like that smiling girl or that white-haired man had no regard for anyone. But Kella shouted, saying that he wanted to care about others. The former king, however, didn't seem fazed by his words. The young man's anger completely exploded. The king then revealed that he saw Kella's potential. Desperate, Kella shouted that the king was wrong. The former king then decided to show him the truth. He created a sphere of pure, dark energy in his hand and shot it straight at the young man. Kella was hit head-on, feeling the pain take over. The former king watched everything with a serious look. He wanted to see if Kella would be worthy of the power. In the middle of the smoke, a three-eyed demon stared at his opponents. A red-haired warrior, exhausted and wounded, could barely breathe. On the battlefield, only she and her general remained against the monsters. General Killman, covered in wounds, prepared for the final sacrifice. The woman screamed in despair, realizing what he was going to do. The remaining soldiers watched, not understanding the drastic decision, but the sacrifice worked. The great demon, Hel Kaloon, was finally defeated. Back in the present, an explosion of magical power erupted. The mana belonged to Kella, and it struck one of his opponents head-on. The enemy mages panicked, not understanding how his mana had increased so much. Kella just gave a sinister smile. He was overflowing with the power he had just stolen from them. All of this happened under the watchful eye of the true enemy. Despite the pain he felt, Kella celebrated inside. His plan had worked, and on the other side, the mages fell to their knees, completely without mana. The protagonist stood in front of Rin, telling her to step away. He felt a dark and infinite power, a gift from someone named Hel. The guards were terrified by that aura and yelled for the demon not to come near. The young man repeated the word, demon, confused by what they were saying. In the blink of an eye, he attacked. Rage took over, and he advanced without mercy. The two guards were thrown against the wall with no chance to react. Lying on the ground, one of them could barely move from the pain. After the fight, the protagonist looked at his own body, still feeling the energy. He saw his hands transforming with sharp claws. Suddenly, the power began to fail and his body locked up. Rin looked at him, completely shocked and not understanding anything. He told them to get out of there quickly. Rin obeyed, and the two ran. While escaping through a passage, the young man thanked Hel for the help. Far away, something plummeted from the sky with a crash, falling in the middle of a field. With a lost look, Kella felt immense relief. He was finally free. A sinister smile took over his face. The young man declared that now he could go wherever he wanted and do whatever he pleased. But Out of nowhere, a pillar of light descended from the heavens. Kella was confused. A bright figure, identical to him, appeared in front of him. The white-haired girl widened her eyes. She recognized that as a spell. The spell began to envelop him. Kella panicked, not understanding what was happening. An invisible force began to pull him into the light. His companion watched everything, completely in shock. Their vision became a blur. They were being teleported away. The destination was a floating and mysterious structure over the water. And then they landed. Kella looked around, totally lost. He asked where they were. The girl realized that the spell had healed and teleported them. She called out to Kella, confirming that it was a double spell, healing and teleportation. Kella explained that the magic that healed them was a special spell from his father. It was a type of alarm spell which only activated in a specific situation, the death of the Demon King. The girl was in shock, realizing that her injuries had healed out of nowhere, but Kella seemed calm. He thought everything was going exactly as planned. That spell was intentionally left to heal them in case of an emergency. She understood that it was a healing and teleportation spell, all in one. Despite everything, the Demon King cared, placing protective spells on his children. As they walked away, the girl asked if that really meant the Demon King was dead. Kella turned with a confident smile, confirming that it was exactly what he wanted. She couldn't believe his coldness. The girl shouted, asking why he would do something like that. But the young demon just ignored her, turning his face away. At that moment, she remembered everything Kella had been through. The struggles, the pain, the suffering. With newfound determination, she declared that she would do everything as his servant until he became the next Demon King. The sudden declaration caught Kella by surprise. He wasn't expecting that much loyalty. Kella seemed annoyed, refusing something the girl was asking for. Out of nowhere, she yelled at him to wait, completely shocked by something. The scene suddenly changed to an unknown place. They were walking through a garden, and the girl recognized the place right away. It was Arsol, the famous land of magic, a place that once celebrated the fall of the Demon King Hel Khaldun. It clicked. The two panicked when they realized where they had ended up. Kella knew the danger. He said that if they were discovered there, everything would be over. Without wasting time, the girl used magic to transform herself. The young man did the same, thinking it was pretty basic magic. Now disguised, he asked her to tell him everything she knew about that place. She explained that Arsol was a small island country on the border of Talua. In the nearby seas, unique magical creatures lived. All that energy allowed magic to develop naturally there, and that's what made Arsol the center of the Great War against the demons. The young man watched the city with a serious and focused look. Suddenly, his companion grabbed him, saying they needed to get out of there, but he calmly replied that it required a little preparation, while the girl made a face of despair. The protagonist thought that, to achieve his dreams in that world, he needed to understand that country, where everything was done through magic. The very architecture of the city floated in the sky. Towers and buildings defied gravity everywhere. He looked at the horizon, thinking that if he could learn magic there, everything would change. Only a rumbling stomach broke the mood. The girl was starving. The young man then suggested that they should eat something first. She grabbed a roll and took a hearty bite, and immediately shouted that it was delicious. Super excited, she was already pointing to another stall, wanting to try more. He just watched, impatiently. After grabbing a baguette, she yelled that it was also delicious. Apparently, she hadn't eaten in days. The girl kept pointing at everything, full of energy, while the protagonist was already completely exhausted. The scene changed to a local bar. Inside, everyone was celebrating. A red-haired woman, Commander Srills, was the center of attention. The people called her the best, the hope of Al-Sol. But the real party was for the free drinks. Kella and her companion were also there, enjoying themselves. The young man seemed to be having a lot of fun. Suddenly, Commander Srills noticed the group. Kella and her friend were already quite drunk. The commander's friendly expression vanished instantly. Soon after, Kella was outside, feeling sick. Her companion complained, saying he drank too much without being able to handle it. The protagonist was completely dizzy. Out of nowhere, their path was blocked by guards. They heard a commotion and decided to check it out. It was a wanted poster, an S-rank mission to hunt down one of the Demon King's children. Kella got excited, thinking it would be easy. He dragged his friend to take a closer look. A crowd formed in the square. The news spread. The Demon King's children were alive and being hunted. Kella and his companion were walking through the city until something in the crowd paralyzed them. It was a wanted poster, rank S, and the face was Kella's, in his demonic form. The shock was instantaneous. His secret was plastered for everyone to see. Quickly, the girl covered his mouth. She tried to disguise it with a nervous laugh. She tried to act normal in the middle of the crowd. Luckily, no one seemed to have connected the dots yet. But the poster was still there, a clear warning. All the hunters in the region would be after him. Kella's surprise turned into pure tension. He understood that the situation was very serious. The protagonist turned around, ready to leave. His companion waited for an order. As they walked away, she asked what she should call him in public. Using his name was too dangerous. Kella thought for a moment. He needed a disguise, a new name. He turned to answer, his decision made. Apparently, the chosen name wasn't the best. Her reaction said it all. Leaving that aside, they continued. The girl summarized the problem. This was very bad, but as they tried to disappear into the crowd, a red-haired woman appeared and blocked their path. She gave a sly smile and talked about another S-rank mission. She knew exactly who he was. A red-haired woman approached the two companions on the street. The silver-haired girl confirmed something with her. The young man seemed suspicious, but the redhead had a sly smile on her face. She took a sip of her drink, full of confidence. The guy commented that, either way, they should appear weak. But the red-haired woman's eyes noticed something more. Suddenly, the young man got startled. His partner was also in shock. Out of nowhere, the redhead wrapped her arm around him, asking if it would be a big problem. The boy became completely tense with her closeness. She then said that the two of them had a very strange smell, and she gave a smile that was anything but reassuring. At that moment, the two of them went into total panic. The woman hugged them and called them travelers who hadn't bathed in ages, offering them a place to wash up. The pair was speechless, completely confused by the situation. But the redhead simply shouted that it was obvious they accepted, dragging the two of them with her. In a luxurious mansion, night fell over the city. Inside, a young man enjoyed a relaxing bath in hot spring water. A tray floated with snacks and a hot drink. He picked up one of the sweets with a satisfied smile on his face. The guy then leaned back, enjoying the moment to the fullest. He closed his eyes, completely surrendering to the tranquility. His peace was total. Nothing seemed to be able to ruin it. But suddenly, the scene changed. A girl appeared, in complete shock. In fact, there were two women in the tub. The redhead asked the other, "Rin, if the tub wasn't great." Rin could only laugh nervously. The red-haired woman kept a provocative smile on her face, enjoying the situation. Meanwhile, Rin tried to hide her embarrassment with a forced laugh. The redhead then said she had one more thing, and a sphere of light appeared in her hand. She plunged the orb into the water, which began to glow intensely. Rin froze as she realized that it was magic of the sacred element. Her eyes rolled back. Her mind simply couldn't take the surprise. The mind of the gray-haired young woman simply broke. She couldn't handle the situation. Meanwhile, a red-haired woman relaxed in the bathtub with a very provocative smile on her face. The girl tried not to freak out, completely embarrassed by what was happening there. The redhead then commented that the hot spring water was very good, wasn't it? That was the last straw. The girl jumped out of the tub in pure desperation. She ran out of there, shouting that she needed to use the bathroom as an excuse. The red-haired woman just watched the scene, finding it all very amusing. She seemed to be loving every second of the other's panic. Outside, the gray-haired young woman was still panicking, thinking about the disaster that almost happened. Suddenly, a young man appeared, asking if she was more relaxed now. Relaxed? She started freaking out at him, explaining the bizarre situation she had just experienced. The young woman tried to say how close she came to a huge problem. The young man listened to everything, thoughtfully, and seemed to agree that it could have been very bad. She continued her rant, but out of nowhere, the redhead passed them in the back of the hallway, and with a victorious little smile, the woman left, leaving the chaos she herself created behind. Excitedly, a silver-haired girl clung to Kella, saying it was time for them to go. But the redhead had other plans, saying she was curious about the drinks and dishes. Kella didn't like that conversation at all, looking at her suspiciously. Without giving them a chance to refuse, the redhead grabbed them both and dragged them away, all happy. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a group of knights watched a mansion under the full moon. They weren't there for a stroll. The mission was very serious. Their target wasn't just ordinary demons. The target was inside that mansion. Inside, the redhead served a drink, revealing it was made with holy water. The reaction was immediate. Kella and the other girl panicked, trying to hide their despair. The redhead watched everything with a victorious smile. Her test had worked. She seemed to have confirmed exactly what she suspected. Suddenly, she lifted her shirt, revealing a huge scar on her stomach. Kella and the silver-haired girl were speechless, not understanding what was happening. The redhead then remembered the moment she received that mortal wound. The red-haired woman began to tell her story with a sinister smile. The two youngsters listened, completely shocked by what she was saying. She then remembered a dark and brutal past. In her memory, a knight shouted that a little pain wouldn't kill them. That group had a single clear purpose: to defeat the Demon King. And there she was, still a child, fallen on the ground with a bleeding eye. The knight yelled, demanding that they shout their objective. Even terrified, the little girl replied that it was to kill the Demon King. Back in the present, the woman finished her account with an intense look. Suddenly, she approached the boy and asked what they did while she suffered. Without warning, she lifted his shirt, touching his stomach. The young man was paralyzed, not understanding her attitude. She commented on how smooth his skin was, without any scars. The white-haired girl couldn't take it anymore and became furious at the scene. The young man blew up, angrily yelling at her to stop it. A red-haired woman approached the young man and whispered something in his ear with a malicious smile. Her expression became even darker, revealing a dangerous intention. The young man was in shock. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Out of nowhere, an intense blue energy exploded in the hall. Beams of light cut through the air, signaling the arrival of someone powerful. The redhead looked up, surprised, and realized they were mages. Her friends panicked. They despaired, not understanding what was happening. But the woman, unlike them, gave a confident smile, as if she already expected it. A group of mages appeared, and their leader stared at her with pure hatred. The mage shouted, clearly furious with her presence there. A dark aura began to emanate from the woman. He accused her of being a demon. She then stood up, fearless, ready for the confrontation. The young man beside her stared at her, still processing the betrayal. Her hand transformed, and she confirmed that the accusation was correct. With a staff in hand, she revealed the unthinkable. She herself leaked the information that she was a demon. A group of mages launched an electric attack with everything they had. But the red-haired woman just watched, unafraid. With a sickly smile, she unleashed an absurd, dark energy. A panicked girl yelled for young Master Chiwu to get out of the way, but the young man could only stare, completely paralyzed by fear. An explosion of mana engulfed everything around. The power was simply overwhelming. The girl couldn't believe the strength of that mana. In the middle of the dust, the red-haired woman appeared, completely unscathed. Suddenly, the scene changed, and the girl was next to another boy, both shocked. The woman then turned to them and asked if they were also demons. She smiled, as if she knew a great secret. The woman spoke about an absolute king and said that his blood ran in the girl's veins, and then dropped the bomb. That would make the girl her own daughter. She was just playing with an energy sphere, enjoying their confusion. Suddenly, two dark figures appeared, a hooded demon with a sinister smile and the demon king himself. They were there for a little girl, who learned right away that she was the demon king's daughter, the only one capable of hiding her powers. The revelation left her in complete shock. The demon king confirmed it. His blood ran in her veins, which made her his daughter. The girl could hardly believe what she was hearing. Her mind went back to the past. She was always a lab rat, trapped with several other children. One day, the hooded demon used a macabre power and simply eliminated all the others. The little girl was the only one who managed to resist, protecting herself as best she could from that deadly energy. She survived, but had to walk alone on a floor covered with the bodies of her friends. The scene was so horrible that she broke down in tears, completely alone. Back in the present, she was still on the ground, processing that past and the new reality. The Demon King stared at her with a serious, almost calculating look, but the girl's face changed. A smile of pure happiness appeared. For the first time, she had a family. The Demon King didn't seem fazed by her reaction. He then gave his first order as a father. She would be a spy and infiltrate heaven to bring him information. Her story began with a look of fear in front of a man who had no idea who she was. It all started in front of a large castle when someone shouted that there was a person lying on the ground. Two guards ran over and found a little girl, apparently defenseless. One of them picked her up, saying they needed to take her to be treated. But the girl thought that, from that moment on, she would act as the Demon King's spy. She trained tirelessly, dedicating every day to getting stronger. The young woman grew up and became one of the most powerful warriors in the Talcan elite squad. After 15 long years, she finally managed to find her father again. Upon seeing him, all she wanted was to run and embrace him. Her goal was almost within her reach, but the Empire's knights stood in her way. Emotion turned into fury. She prepared a dark power in her hand. The same man who rescued her now stared at her, shocked by the betrayal. In her mind, the image of the life she had always dreamed of flashed. She just wanted to live a new life alongside her father as Sril's Kolrun. Even all wounded, the warrior prepared for the final blow. The three-eyed being stared at him and recognized his strength. He admitted that he had never faced a human like that. With a defiant smile, the man unleashed an absurd blue energy. He summoned the Spear of the Heavens, a pillar of light that tore through the darkness. But the enemy responded in kind, conjuring the flames of hell. At that instant, the warrior's daughter, who was watching the fight, heard something. It was the voice of her father, Sril's Kalden, echoing in her mind. The young woman was in shock, paralyzed by what was happening. The image of her father began to shine intensely, as if he were saying goodbye. A last tear ran down her face. Suddenly, the warrior's body began to crumble into dark ashes. The three-eyed being simply watched, impassively, as his opponent's life faded away. Desperate, his daughter screamed, watching her father disappear right in front of her. She couldn't believe it, screaming that it wasn't possible. All that remained was her pain in the face of the monster's coldness that took her father away. The red-haired warrior was one of the few who remained standing after the Great War. She remembered the day of victory, when everyone celebrated the fall of the Demon King. But amidst the party, the heroine felt out of place, tired of fighting. So, after everything, she decided to retire. The woman went to her second home, a magical and grandiose kingdom. There, she thought she could finally start a new and peaceful life. But something inside her had changed forever. Suddenly, a dark aura exploded from the woman, scaring her new companions. The silver-haired girl couldn't believe what she was seeing. The young man beside her was also shocked by the transformation. He confronted her, trying to understand what was happening. But the former heroine just gave a sinister smile, filled with a frightening power. Her plan involved that magical country. She explained that the longer they let that place exist, the worse things would get. The young man was terrified by the idea. Kella's hand clenched tightly. He wasn't done yet. A man with an eye patch realized someone was in great danger. Meanwhile, one of the mages warned that the blast would draw everyone there. He ordered everyone to use as much mana as they had. They focused all that energy into a single staff. The display of power left everyone around them speechless. That's when Kella revealed his true demonic form. The red-haired warrior was completely paralyzed by the sight. Her gaze was one of pure disbelief, and behind the young man, an ancestral spirit manifested, revealing the source of his power.